Welcome back to Winning the Room. In this episode, we're with Julie Eckersley, and we're talking about leadership. She really unpacks this subject matter, and of course, she's doing a doctorate. Why not? Soon-to-be Dr. Julie Eckersley. Certainly in my own experience, listening to your gut and at least bringing your natural instincts into the decision-making process, I find that to be very useful. And I do think a lot of leaders resist that because there's so much data and insight and now AI analytics, etc., out there. I mean, who am I to bring my gut instinct, my opinion into it? I can't buy every product, so who cares, right? I need to be thinking about the mass, therefore using data and insights. I think that's a dangerous thing to do for a leader because you're there for a reason, right? Like the board's picked you, the group has picked you for some instinctual reasons about you. So, yeah, I feel like bringing that into the process is really important.
Yeah.
I certainly try and work on that.
Yeah. That I would say within that, what is the space that you're making every day to listen to your gut? And that, for me, that's meditation. Like when are you really stopping and listening, or you're just doing it on the fly? And also within that, I mean, absolutely believe in the human gut and the human instinct, but understanding your own conscious and unconscious biases. Because that plays into it as well. And that, so that's when do you know yourself enough to know that that uncomfortable feeling is because something's not right? And when is it because you've got a bias? Here's an example. I'm a big advocate for women in the workplace, and, there's, we just got to call it out. There's a lot of work still to be done, particularly in pay equality. It just came out a few months ago that there's a 30K pay cap. I was working with two awesome men, and we were doing interviewing, and it came down to a couple of people, a man and a female. And when we did those interviews, the three of us were talking afterwards, talked to the man, talked to the female. The couple of guys said, the guy just feels more sure of himself. We think he'll do better. Now, my take on that interview was clearly the woman was more prepared, a better cultural fit for the particular environment that we were working in. And I really think that they had an unconscious bias for also that certainty that men can have on presentation that sometimes just women don't have because of, the way things flow. And when we actually talked it through and I was able to, be an advocate and say, can we just break down actually their skill sets? They then were able to bypass their initial reaction that the guy was a better fit and go, oh, yeah, we can see. And we employed that woman in that scenario, and she was amazing. She was absolutely the right choice. But they needed to have a circuit breaker in their first reaction to understand that even though the woman didn't have that same level of confidence necessarily, she was actually going to be the better choice for that job.
Right. And do you think that came down to presence in the room or language selection or other things? Like, what do you think that came down to? Because it sounds like she was as qualified, if not more. She was as prepared, if not more. So what betrayed her, do you think? Until you stepped in, and good on you for doing so.
I think it's a general confidence. I notice this when I'm negotiating pay contracts with women. For whatever reason, as a gross generalization, men just have more of a sense of, that's what I need to be paid. And there's no question about it. Whereas it's just culturally, women don't necessarily come to it in the same way, so they can ask with more anxiety or more uncertainty, and that then can create what when someone asks that confidence and is able to say that's what I need to be paid, it calms you. You would know this from a communication perspective, but this is an example of trying to override that gut and understand that there are cultural elements at play there. It doesn't necessarily mean the woman's right for the job, right? Because I'm not saying that at all, but I'm just saying understanding that there are other things at play that maybe your gut is not quite attuned to.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with grinding all of this stuff down to actionable things. Something I've noticed, and again, gross generalization, often with female leaders, there's permission-based language.
Yeah.
So asking
Yeah.
versus definitively telling,
Yeah.
which is often a male trait. So for me, that can be designed out of, right? You can design away from posing things as a question, coming up on the end of a sentence, even if it's not a question, using words like may and should and could. Instead, it's just either deleting those words or replacing them with words of conviction. Do you think that's all it is, or do you think there's other stuff at play?
I think it's all of that. I think they're
Mhm.
really great points. And I think it's also to do with body.
Mm.
Like, I think when you feel that you're entitled to that amount of money, you're relaxed. So, and we would know as communicators, when I'm relaxed, you're going to mirror me.
Mm.
And when I come to that conversation, even if you can't see it in my body, right, just now, like I tighten my gut. And, if I start feeling that and I'm saying, well, I want that, then everything about me is twitchier.
Yeah.
And you mirror that back. You're like, oh, what's going on there?
Mm.
So I think, yeah, that instrumental element can be really big as well. Or sometimes I've had the experience where by the time a woman comes to ask for a pay increase, she's held off on asking for so long that she's angry.
Mm.
And again, that's not
Mhm.
easy. So if I don't know myself, if I don't have a sense of context, that anger can also be really hard to say, oh, yeah, sure. You're worth that
That's
extra
a
money in
smart
that time.
observation. That's a very smart observation. I'm just reflecting on a few people I've worked with, and yeah, they were pissed by the time they got to that conversation. And that's hard to say yes to,
It's hard to say yes to.
right?
Right.
Mm.
But
It's a very
then
interesting
again,
one.
you want to lead things, you want to lead change.
Mm.
This is about managing yourself, knowing what your anger reaction is. Well, hang on, when I actually take my defensive, you're being angry at me, I'm going to be angry back, that kind of human, fight kind of element. And I'd go, hang on, let me just look at what's going on here. Let me hear what you're saying. Let me look at the work you've been doing over time and put it in that context.
Mm. Yeah. It's funny, if I reflect on the people I work best with, it's usually females. Not by design, but I have a couple of very high-powered, incredible female leader clients of mine. And I do find this area of, high conviction, almost male forcing versus, contemplative, empathetic, kind of, I guess, more thought out leadership. And, what works in a moment of getting a pay rise versus what works in a real business scenario. And I actually think they're potentially the opposite, i.e. you can present very well, get the pay rise or get the gig, but then that may not actually work that well. That type of personality and style may not actually work that well in the real job, just because we're in such a stage of flex and people want so many different things. And, you actually need to be very empathetic. And I know that's your shtick around empathy, but yeah, anyway, I just find that interesting.
What areas do you find you end up coaching them in the most?
Gosh, I am continually shocked that I sit with leaders of all types, but potentially especially female leaders, and we start by talking about, I guess, what you would call imposter syndrome, right? Like, look, I'm the CEO and, I mean, you've got to understand my journey was like this, so I'm kind of accidental, right? Stuff like that. And these are people that are making like tons of money and super genius people, absolute thought leaders. And again, no one else is going to tell them this. But I start by just going, okay, let's just unpick how we got here. And then when you hear the story, it's like, yeah, it got to the moment, it was me against 5 people and the board picked me and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, come on, like we're here and now, and let's just try and get rid of some of that stuff because it's just not relevant. It's just completely irrelevant. I don't understand why it's there, but I'm always shocked at how often that's there.
I heard Jacinta Ardern speaking to Yale graduates recently, giving the graduation speech, and imposter syndrome is how she started. It's
There you go.
so prevalent.
There you go. Yeah. I want to come back to something else. This idea of leaders need to stop and take take a moment and take stock of where we are, I feel like we're in a state right now with media and just everything going on. I don't think anyone's stopping. I think the skill or superpower to be able to pull up and go, actually, where are we? What is this moment? Why are we having this meeting, this keynote, this whatever? The ability to actually have presence of mind to stop and do that, and I bet you get some of that from meditating, that I think could be a superpower for leaders.
I absolutely think it's a superpower. And I think that's exactly what meditating teaches you to do. It teaches you to be more present in those moments when you're concentrating on that practice, and therefore be able to carry that through all the time. No small feat. And I think the other thing, I remember a great boss I had once. I went to him and I said, "Oh, I've got no work-life balance," expecting all this sympathy and, aren't you working hard and how impressive is
Yeah.
that? And he was so tough. He said, "It's your problem. Sort it out. Like, no one's going to tell you to stop." So in terms of controlling like the pace of things, choosing to stop, and he was great. Like, he would be out of the office at pretty much 5 o'clock every day. And, even though I clearly wasn't doing that with my work-life balance, it was really powerful to have a boss that was leading the way, saying, "This is how we're going to do business. We've got this many hours in the day and we're going to work really, really hard. We're going to give it our all, but we're going to look after ourselves."
I think that's very relevant for anyone trying to develop in the business world. You become what you accept.
Yeah.
So if you are that workhorse, if you are the person that is ready to do the midnight job and the rush job and the unreasonable task, hey, these are enterprises. That's the person. Oh my God, we've got a problem. Give it to them.
Yeah.
So it's self-fulfilling. You get more and more of that work. And it doesn't actually allow you to rise. People who get promoted, they step back and maybe go, actually, boss, maybe that isn't the smartest use of my time. Potentially, we could allocate that to these 3 other people and let me think more holistically about this thing, this task, whatever it is. But by doing that stop and reframe, you're going up and others are going to be doing that workhorse work. Now, doesn't mean you try and shirk all work, but if you accept all work, that's what you become. You become that workhorse and you stay junior.
That's so interesting. I think no one will ever tell you to stop. And I think when you've been that workhorse, and I've been that a lot, also no one will really thank you for it. Like, you can have paid a great price in terms of, hours worked and, things that you've sacrificed. And, then you leave that work. They don't care. Thank you. But it doesn't really matter.
It's a terrible thing about human beings. Seriously.
Yeah, they'll take what they can.
Take what they can.
So it's up to you to say that's enough.
Yep. And if you give and give and give, that becomes the normal. So in order to be extraordinary, geez, you've got to, kill yourself twice on the job.
So is it one of the warnings that you'd say don't overpromise?
Well, depends where you are. Depends where you are. If you're coming up through business, you do want to be the value add. You want to be the person that leaders see as valuable, reliable. But you then need to take responsibility for your workload and how much you do. And again, look for those moments to get slightly higher and think more holistically. So it's certainly not about trying to shirk everything and being, slippery shoulders. That'll get you nowhere. But there is a balance because you also don't want to be that workhorse. So, yeah, it's tricky, and I guess it depends on the stage.
Interesting.
We all know those people in business who've got extremely high doing a remarkably low amount of work.
Yes, we do.
Right? We all know those people.
It's so frustrating.
It is.
It's so unfair.
I call them empty suits, right? They fall upwards, and they're very clever at probably articulation, but also maneuvering. Yeah.
Can I say that in my experience, they're often men?
You certainly can.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Can't think of a female ever that I have seen to do that, to be frank. Tricky question. Give me the 5 characteristics of a great leader. And a great leader in 2026,
Wow.
right? Modern great leader.
That is a tough one. All right, only 5. Well, I'm going to say communication. So that vision stuff and able to communicate using the skills of story and really empowering people.
Are these in priority order?
I'm not going to give you that. I can't hold you to that.
Fair
You
enough.
got me on the hop already.
Yeah, fair enough.
So,
okay, so one, vision, storytelling.
and communication.
Yeah.
I think really, really important. I think EQ, that really balancing that business acumen with EQ that is going to become increasingly important, particularly as we see generational change. They're asking for that. And I think, if you want to create loyalty and real depth of connection, you're going to need to be able to use those emotional tools. Well, I mean, those are definitely, EQ, empathy, communication. I mean, great business smarts. I mean, when we're, whatever industry you're in, you want to know that industry deeply and well. I think all of those things matter. But I think that role of CEO as communicator is really, really important. And that's part of the reason that we are seeing these CEOs come out and communicate, their businesses and being able to do that really effectively.
Yeah. What strikes me about that list is 1 and 2, and I would personally have storytelling and EQ as priority order 1 and 2. They're not necessarily what you've learned along the way to become a subject matter expert, right? You could be brilliant at banking, at, whatever industry you're in, but actually have limited EQ and no storytelling ability and or experience. So one day someone knights you and says, okay, worker, you are now a leader, and we're expected to turn on those other 2 things. Again, I think they're the most important. That's tricky.
Really tricky. And I think part of being able to address that as a leader is understanding their importance and understanding that, we talk in television all the time about moving hearts and minds. If you want to move hearts and minds, you've got to be able to go beyond logic into the emotional. Simon Sinek says that, right? That human beings never make decisions on logic. They make them on emotion and then they justify them through logic. So the teams, the people that you're leading, this is how they're actually responding, whether you're seeing that or not, because I think, understanding that you are not seeing what's happening below the water as a leader, try as you might, is also really important. But knowing that human beings are moved by emotion to take action, to be loyal and to go beyond.
Yeah. I can't wait to see how your investigation into leadership goes. And I love the way you've articulated it. It's about winning hearts and minds. It's more than just subject matter expertise. What a tricky job.
Yeah, watch this space. I'm looking forward to how it unfolds as well.
Thanks for listening to this episode. It's a really important conversation that needs to happen, and you can find us anywhere where you get high-quality podcasts. If you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, make sure you check out the next episode.